Because there's no Sunday school today, I'm doing a children's talk, and I hope boys and girls are listening to me wherever you are. God's people were going through the wilderness on their way to the promised land, but in their way was a great big river called the River Jordan, and somehow they had to cross over this river and they didn't know how. They couldn't swim over it, there was too many of them, it was too big and too deep. And they couldn't have a bridge over it, and they couldn't get boats to go across it. There was too many of them. So Joshua, who was in charge, asked God, what should we do to try and get over the other side of the river? And God said, I'm going to do the same thing with this river as I did with the Red Sea that opened up and all the people walked over it on dry land. I'm going to open up a pathway through this river, and you can all go through this pathway and you'll be all right. And that's what God did. He opened up the pathway, it was dry, and all the people started walking across, loads and loads and loads, many thousands trying to get to the other side. And God said, make sure you get 12 men, big strong men, and get each one of them to pick up a big stone from the bottom of the river and carry it with him all the way through to the other bank on the other side. Make sure you do that. And so Joshua appointed 12 men to do that, and each one picked up a very big stone and took it to the other side of the river. And when they got there, they piled those 12 stones on top of each other so you could see them. And Joshua said to God, why are we doing this? And God said, because in the future, when the river goes back and it's ordinary, people will say, God didn't really do a miracle, did he? That didn't really happen. And when people look at the stones, they'll realize that the miracle did happen. The miracle was there, and all those stones had come from the middle of the river. And especially tell children, he said. Make sure as children grow up, you take them on a day's outing if necessary to show them those stones and to tell them where they came from and tell them what God did. Now, it's very important that people remember the great things that God did. Otherwise, they grow up and they forget all about it. So I'm going to set you a challenge today. This is my exercise book. I expect you've got an exercise book at home. I want you this afternoon, when you've got a few minutes, get a pen and write down the good things that God has done for you in your life. See? Have you got a good mum and dad? Write that down. Do you live in a nice house? Write that down. Do you enjoy going to school? Write that down. You got any friends? Write that down. Do you like coming to church? Write that down. Whatever it is, all the good things, write it down there, right? And then every week, every Sunday afternoon from now on, you try and think of something else and you write it down there, all the good things. Because one day when you grow up, you may forget all the good things that God did for you when you were a boy or a girl. But when they're in the book, a nice book like this, maybe in 20 years' time, you'll say, I'm going to read that book and see what God did for me when I was young. See? Very important. And it's to help your memory. So like those stones were there on the river bank to remind those people what God did, so you'll have your own book to remind you what God did for you.